Today on the channel, we're talking about Insta360 X5 accessories, and I've had this camera for a while now, did a video on it on this channel. I use this thing every time I take the airplane out and fly, but I also use it to travel. And so in this video, I'm gonna cover all my favorite accessories for the Insta360 X5. I did a previous video on the X4 accessories, so I'll link that here so you can go back and look at those accessories. They still all apply, but since then, Insta360 has created a whole host of new accessories specific to the X5 that I really wanted to share with you. Before we get to the airplane part of things, I want to cover some of the things that I attach or use with the Insta360 X5 every time I leave the house. And the number one thing you need to do with this camera is protect it. So there's two different handle grips that have been released. Use them both. They have different functions and features, and so I'll use them kind of differently depending on maybe where I am or what I plan to do. The first one is this folding handle, which is really cool. And this thing just attaches to the camera and allows you to sort of keep one selfie stick with it the whole time. Now this is a foldable handle, so you can keep it in your pocket. So you don't have this huge device all hanging up with you. So this is really cool. It also comes with this little handy dandy attachment thing, which will cover the lenses and keep it, sort of all together. Now, I'll be honest, usually when I'm using this, I just remove this thing and I just use the normal lens cover because it works, equally as well, just like this. Now, the advantage this has over other ones is it has, not only does it extend or unfold, but it extends. Now, it's not super long like the regular selfie stick, but is just enough for most cases that you just want to get a little different perspective. So that's how I use this. This additionally either comes with two different versions. There's one that just has a piece of plastic in here, or you can get the one with the remote. You can just get the handle and get this little Bluetooth remote later. This works, I think, when you're just having it extended so you don't have to reach out and use the camera. So it's pretty cool. And again, this, if I'm going to use the extended feature, want a little bit more range, then I'll definitely use this method of travel. Both of these have the ability to stand up. So it's got a little tripod base, sit it on a table, set it on somewhere, walk around, do whatever, pick it back up and go. Again, its limiting factor, I think, is the range that you get or how far this thing extends, but it is pretty cool. Now, if I'm not going to need that extended ability, maybe I'm going to do more tabletop stuff. Let's get these little feet back in there. If I'm going to just use more tabletop and I don't need the extended range, then I will not use this. The other thing that I'll typically use with the X5 is this foldable handle. Now this thing is pretty cool. Also has a little lanyard for you, but this thing also has little legs to use it as a tabletop feature. Those things are cool. But what is cool about this is when it's folded, it protects the lenses, it protects the screen, and then you have a handle for your camera, but it doesn't extend. So that's the negative about this, but it does protect things. If you're gonna be more, I would say, close up with the X5, then this handle works great just because it's all one piece, easy to pocket, and pretty small, minimal, throw in your bag, protects everything. You don't need any extra pieces. So those are the two things that I use on the go. Some other things that you're going to want to consider before we get into the airplane piece of things are the lens replacement kit. Now, I have had the luxury of not needing it yet, but you're definitely going to want to buy one of these, 30 bucks, throw it in your bag, throw it in your truck, throw it wherever in case you scratch one of the lenses. That's one of the big advantages of the X5 over the previous editions. The other thing you're going to want to consider is this, the mic air from Insta360. You're actually hearing all of the audio from the Mic Air, with the Ace Pro 2 in this case. But either way, it's the same audio to whatever camera. It's really handy. You can actually control the camera, record here, or hit the button here, starts recording on the camera, whichever one it's attached to. And you actually could do dual audio, so you're recording audio both from the microphone and the camera, and you can choose later in the app which one sounds better. In this case, for situations where you're further away from the camera, you're going to want to use the Mic Air because it just gives you that clear audio regardless of the range between you and the camera. Sort of bridging the gap between how I use this and what I use every day in the airplane is this handy dandy X5 battery charging case. It's really cool. There's no internal battery, but you can charge it while it's inside. This thing also has the ability to carry some extra cards if you're going to use those, and then it will charge both batteries together. My only negative with this thing is sometimes a little tricky. You got to almost like get the batteries, like you're getting the battery out of the camera. It can be a little tricky to get the batteries out of the case. It's the only negative. Otherwise, I like its slim design, super handy. Another thing that came out recently with the X5 are these ultra batteries. Now these are, I think, 2800 milliamp hour versus 24 to the blue. The little thing here is orange, blue on the other batteries. And so I do notice a longer time on the batteries with the ultras, and so that's why I have them. I use those exclusively, especially when the camera is out on the wing, just because I want it to last for a while I'm airborne. I can't change the batteries when I'm flying, so I go ultra when I'm flying. The blue ones last plenty for me when I'm out and around town, because when I'm out and around, I'm typically using the quick capture, turn it on record, turn it off, and go about my business. But airborne, it's a little more extended that I use that. So definitely ultras and a spare ultra for when I land. For when I'm on my way home, I have a second battery. So those are really ways I use the camera regardless of what I'm doing. Getting into the airplane mode of life, I use the X5 on every flight. The reason I do is because not only is it a great way to capture content or get a good view of the airplane in flight over different places, and you get that 360 view, you can view whatever you have around you, so it's always a really cool angle. The other reason I use this camera all the time is for debrief purposes, because when I pair it with the GPS preview remote / microphone, I get, and I don't use the microphone abilities of this remote all the time. What I typically do is always have this in the cockpit with me, the camera on the wing, and then I use the GPS feed to the camera, and then I also control it to record or stop. And so it's always recording the GPS data to the footage. Use that footage later to determine how was my speed control on final, what was my speed on touchdown. The caveat being you're recording GPS information into the camera, so winds matter, temperature, pressure, all those things impact what it's feeding, because this is just GPS information. So you just got to take that into account if you're using this for debrief purposes, but I always like to know what speed did I touch down, how was my speed control on final, that kind of thing. Now, how do I use it on the airplane? Well, first of all, I attach it to the wing just using this mount. That's the only thing that's not Insta360 in this whole video. It is temporarily attached to the tie-down part of my airplane, and then I just come out here, use this cage, which is another thing that I would highly recommend. Get this cage, pop the camera in, then we are off to the races. In the airplane, I will have this GPS preview remote dialed in, recording GPS data, or not recording GPS data, transmitting the GPS information to the camera on the wing while I fly around. Then I can start and stop the recording as I fly around, so I'm not using all the battery, just getting drone time from point A to point B. But usually in the pattern, I'm definitely recording all the information for all my landings. Some other ways that I'll use this camera, and I usually when I fly with an Ace Pro 2, the X5, and an X4. If, depending on what I'm doing, I will use either the X4 or the X5. The advantages of the X5, of course, a better sensor, but also the ability to use these neutral density filters, these ND filters, which they came out with. I will fly with these when it's in the cockpit. The reason is, and the reason you'd use an ND filter are, first of all, motion blur along the ground. But for me, I use it to control how much of the propellers I see in my view. So here's a little demonstration of here's what it looks like with the ND filters on, and then here's one without it. You can just see a difference depending on how fast the propellers are moving and the lighting conditions. But usually if I'm trying to capture, get a clear view through those propellers, I'm using an ND filters, and the X5 is the only one that can do that. The X4 cannot unless you stick them on there somehow. One of the last things I use are these clamps. These are heavy duty clamps that Insta360 uses, and I can clamp these to the bars and put them in different places, and it's, man, you crank that sucker in, man, it is not moving. Then I use one of these quick release mounts. This is the Insta360 one. It is very, very handy to attach the camera to, and then you can lock it in place so I'm not worried about this thing falling on me or anything, if I have a rougher landing or anything else happens turbulence-wise, this thing's not going to bounce around. If I'm using the X4, I usually use this little L bracket. This is the horizontal or vertical mount, and what this adds, now the X5 has the ability to directly attach to this, the X4 does not. But if you use this L bracket, you can put it either way, either this way, or depending on where I have it located, you can put it in other orientations. So again, heavy duty bracket, L bracket, definitely the way to go when you are flying around with the Insta360 X5. So that's how I use it, that's how I attach it. Then I download the footage, usually using the Studio app on my computer, but I can also use it on my phone, which is, again, if you use the quick reader, that would be a good way to do it on your phone, but I typically just take it home, use it on my computer. One thing I haven't really talked about yet is the mic adapter that you'll need for the X5. That allows you to plug in your headset using the second piece that is not Insta360, but you put it in there, and you connect it from your headset to your audio jack, and now you're recording audio straight out of your interphone system and the radio traffic all into your camera, whichever you happen to be using. Welcome to Backcountry Aviation Radio. I'm your host, JB, where we sometimes that's usually plugged into the mic adapter that I use with the Ace Pro 2, but I can also use the X5 depending on where the cameras are on any given day. That's it. Those are the accessories I'm using right now, both in the airplane and around town to protect the camera, use it in a little mini tripod setup, or record information when I'm flying around, recording my landings, getting some debrief. That's it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe. More content coming on this channel, aviation related, with my 1974 Bellanca Scout as we head out. Right now it is a terrible day for flying, but we hope to go out later in the week. Anyway, see you in the next video.